Okay, let's actually get into this. Neuroscience terminology. Here we go. Going back, Matt. So we're talking about anatomical and orientation terms, which we talked about here on stream before. It was actually one of the first, I think the first neuroscience stream that I did. It was very informal. It's basically just me drawing on pictures of myself to talk about those different anatomical directions. So it'll be a different talk tonight. Okay. Also word roots. Okay. Word roots too. That's what all these fancy words are based off of, is, you know, just like the words in the English language based off of different Latin, Greek, and other word roots. Scientific terms are no different. Okay. If you get the different word roots down, you can kind of figure out what things are as you hear that word you've never heard before. You can kind of piece together what it is. So we will do what that is. We will also talk, we will talk about what those are. Ninja says Desert Bus is a game where you drive from Tucson to Vegas at 45 miles an hour in real time, and your bus has a slight pull to the right. It takes 8 hours. That sounds terrible. I'm not gonna lie, no saving, no checkpoints, just driving in a straight line for 8 hours. That sounds awful. I don't want to play that game. One sec. Ooh, that sneezed though. That sounds awful. I don't want to play that. No, thank you. That sounds really bad. Sounds like trying to get that 4 hour achievement in Portal 2. Portal 2? No. Gosh, what's that game? The Stanley Parable. Yeah, no, I don't want to do it. Gerbo's ready for it. Thank you, Draco. Bearded Dragon found a kitty. You know the drill, man. You know the drill. Here's what we're covering today, okay? Anatomical orientation terms. We're going to talk about planes and stuff like that with respect to, or planes and directions with respect to the body. Anatomical definitions as well. Some defining terms about neurons, neuroscience, things like that. We're going to talk about word roots and examples of their use. And then at the end, we'll have some challenge words. See if you guys can figure it out for a modest amount of BDNF per. Okay, so that's what we're going to go through. Bearded Dragon has this kitty. The mighty kitty born, a loyal subject of Fatz's 12-acre kingdom. A kitty named Skyrim. I like it. And here it is. Okay. So here are the different planes that we talk about when we're dividing up a person or a brain or whatnot. Okay. Dovahkiin. That's the one, Draco. Ninja will get that entered for you in just a moment. Yeah, these are the different planes we talk about when we're dividing up a person, or talking about a division of their body, or looking at a section of their body, whatnot. Most of the time we look at the brain using these kinds of things. X, Y, and Z axis, true, but they don't just call it X, Y, and Z axis. Nope. They have different names for them. Okay. So the typical X axis here will be called a coronal view or a frontal view. Okay, that's that. We've seen brains cut up like this before. We're actually going to see one in a moment. Okay. See, that's why I don't use X and Y, because this would be see, I mean, it doesn't work that way. You could also say this is X. You can say this is, I don't know, it's weird. But anyways, someone add that to the jokes. You can add that to the jokes, Gerbo. You got this. You got this. Wow, Kavas, writing a paper. Did you hear about the new religion based on the color bluish green? It's Scientology. Stop. Hey, you can add that, Gerbo. You're anybody that's a sub can use exclamation point add joke and add a joke in there. You can literally do that. In fact, be easier to do it because Kavas is probably driving. He usually listens to us on the way home. Anyways. So, anyways, forget that I said that's the X plane, because you could also say that this is. It's like you could say this is the Y plane, and you can say this is the Y plane. That's why they don't use X, Y, and Z. Anyways, so this one is body is divided in this way, like this way, like they cut straight through your body, right? Coronal or frontal plane. See, I had this when I was in an anatomy class. I had described as the teacher said they always remembered it that this was the coronal plane, because if you took like a Corona bottle and like smashed it on your head like this, the bottle would be coming down in that plane. It's a dumb example, but like most dumb examples, you remember them, you don't forget them, and they work, right? So that is the coronal plane, the blue one here. The greenish one, cutting just straight through a midsection or taking a flat section, right? Axial or horizontal or transverse is the one that I usually hear. Transverse plane, okay? But any of those could work. It could be called axial, horizontal, or transverse. Yep. There you go, Gerbo. There you go. You got it. Let's see. There could also be, the red plane here, where it's basically just straight down the center, right through your nose and all that stuff. That would be called, I don't know why this is in black. This should also be in red. These are all the same name for the same thing. It could be the sagittal, the one I usually see as far as the brain is concerned. A sagittal view, or a longitudinal, or a median plane. Any of those things. Sagittal, longitudinal, or a median plane. Those are the ones. And then there's one that I never really see ever used, but we'll talk about it anyways. A parasagittal plane would be, I guess, just not down the midline, but somewhere else on the torso. We don't really ever talk about this when we're talking about the brain, but that's a thing too, apparently, and you can remember that if you want to. It's literally never come up for me, but that's a thing too. So yeah, this way, that is coronal. This way through us, like this way, would be transverse is what I would usually say, but it could also be called axial or horizontal. And then straight this way would be sagittal or longitudinal or median. That's that. Let's talk about this again with respect to the brain, okay? First of all, there's some different axes we could look at if you want to. I haven't really seen those too much, but you might see papers refer to things like along the medial axis, which would be this way through the brain, following where the line going between the M's are, okay? That would be along the medial axis. You might see it talk about things along a lateral axis, which would be going side to side. Like from the L, and pretend there's another L over here, going straight through that way. Or we might hear things talk about on an axial axis, which would be going straight down along this D line here, okay? This would be the axial axis, okay? We don't often talk about axes in the brain, but you can, okay? So medial, lateral, and axial, that's it. But again, here's those same planes, okay? If we cut the brain in half, like straight through the corpus callosum, split one hemisphere from the other hemisphere, that would be the sagittal plane. Kind of like in the the body, if it's straight down our body. If you went straight through your nose, you'd also be going straight through the corpus callosum and splitting your brain in twain. Boom. Sagittal plane. Okay. Dang. Draco's fast on those, man. Wow. And also, just like if you were to take that Corona bottle, smash it over your head this way, and divide yourself into two pieces this way, you'd also be dividing the brain that way as well. So that is still the coronal plane. Cutting it in half and then looking at it front ways or looking at it from behind. Yep, that's the coronal plane. And then dividing the brain in half, top to bottom, that is the axial plane, or otherwise known as the transverse plane. That's what I always hear. That's what I see used, and that's what I hear. And then they put in parasagittal plane again. I've never seen that used. If you were to divide the brain on the sagittal plane or here also, I mean, they usually just call it a sagittal view still. So that's that. Those are the different planes. Very quick, easy. Like I said, you might see those kinds of terms if you do any sort of research on this, and read any sort of research articles and stuff on the brain. They might talk about a sagittal view or a sagittal section. They might talk about a coronal view. They might talk about an axial view, things like that. If you look at stuff on Wikipedia, they'll say you're looking at the brain through a sagittal view, something like that, or a viewed sagittally, something like that. You see those things. You see those terms used. Tax you. Thank you for the host, man. Appreciate you, as always. Back. Had another sneeze. Ooh. Like I said, these things, we talk about them a little bit on stream, but you're going to see them more often if you're seeing descriptions of where things are in the brain, or a description of a section of a brain, something like that. Just good to know. Helps orient you, right? All right, anatomical directions. Here we are. Okay. So these are not specifically having to do with the brain, but we are going to talk about one specifically having to do with the brain in just a moment, in just a bit. So we talked about this a lot. So we talked about medial and lateral. Okay. So lateral going towards the outside, like towards or away from the midline. We talked about that a lot. And then medial going towards the midline. Kind of self-explanatory as far as I'm concerned, but medial is obviously going towards the midline of your body, until it gets to the center. If you were to keep going, it's going to be more lateral, just on the other side. Okay, doesn't matter what side of the body you're on. Medial is towards the center, lateral is away from the center. That's it. We have proximal and distal, which we don't really talk about much when we're talking about the brain, or at all for that matter, because it has to do specifically with the limbs. Okay, but proximal is approaching your trunk, going up towards your shoulders, and where it joins with your trunk. And distal is going just out towards your fingertips, or in the case of the leg, down towards your toes. That's it. That's all. So your fingers are distal to your shoulder. Okay, your toes are distal to your knee. That's it. And your hip is proximal to your knee. So what'd you say to those kind of things? Okay, or about those kind of things. Okay. So we're looking at this person from the side here. We would say caudal is going towards the tail, or down, or we'd also say inferior. We often say that as well. We usually use inferior and superior, but cranial and caudal are also other ways to talk about that. Proximal is close and distal is distant. Exactly, the dist part can help you think about that. So dist is for distance, distal is distance. And proximal, or proximity, right? Proximity usually talks about being close. Has to do with being closer. Exactly. Yep. Using those word roots already, Gerbo. I like it. Okay. So, like I said, we have cranial, obviously going towards the cranium. That's easy. That's easy to say. Another word they use when they're talking about caudal versus the other one is rostral, which has to do with like a beak. Like a rooster's beak. Okay, so cranial, when we're talking about our body, cranial, rostral, superior, kind of mean similar things, right? They're usually talking about if they're standing up in an anatomical position, standard anatomical position like this. Well, this guy's not quite in standard anatomical position because his hands aren't out, but close to standard anatomical position. Then cranial, superior, and rostral all kind of mean the same thing. They're all going up towards the top of the head. Same thing with caudal, inferior, and cranial. Well, inferior and caudal. I guess you could also say, you can't really say basal, it doesn't work here. But yeah, that all means it's kind of going down towards your feet. Sorry, what is costal compared to distal? They're not compared. They're not. Caudal is compared to rostral or cranial or superior. They're on this axis. Just distal and proximal are only for limbs. Yeah, that's what I was saying. We don't. This is why you probably haven't heard about it, because we're talking about brains usually, and we don't use proximal or distal when we're talking about brains because they don't pertain to brains. They pertain to limbs. That's it. That's all. Only for limbs, or appendages, as it were. You know. I suppose you could also use them to describe like octopus tentacles and stuff like that. Mama Bear 4222, my friend, welcome on back for another month in the neural net. Thank you for reconnecting with us. I appreciate you as always. How the heck you been? Hope you've been doing well. We have some freaking emotes in chat. Draco, Ninja, thank you for those. Shout her out. Mama Bear's back for a second month in the neural net. I appreciate you. Thank you. You've been good. I'm glad to hear that, Mama. Glad to hear that. So you're talking about some anatomical directions. That's what we're doing. Learning more about the brain. Oh no, I didn't realize that this picture cut off the... Whatever, it doesn't matter. There's those emotes. Let's see them, guys. I love it. I love it. Anyways, like I was saying, proximal and distal is only for appendages, right? Only for, usually when we're referring to us, our arms and legs. Could be for other animals that also have appendages, whether those be arms, legs, tentacles, whatnot. Wings, I guess, too. Can't think of any other appendages that animals really have. Tails? You could probably also use it for tails, too. I don't know. You'd probably use rostral and caudal for tails. But yeah, that's it. That's it. And I see you guys took out Rancho Tommy Chong, which means this regal AF mother trucker gets a treat, and you guys get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest kitty on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. He's back. He's usually back in time. Oh my god, you're killing me. Fats! Killing me, dog. He's usually back in time for the treats. He's kind of got the tower down. He's kind of got him down. Kind of got him down. Yeah, bye Felipe. Got him. Man, that's the one. That's what that refers to, yeah. Proximal distal. Anyways. So, like I was saying, cranial, superior, and rostral. Those kind of all refer to when a person's standing up, kind of all refer to going towards the head, right? Cranial specifically going towards the cranium or around the area of the cranium. Superior would just be kind of whatever direction is up or above. And rostral kind of refers to going towards the beak or towards the nose. But generally speaking, it's going to be referring to going up, right? That's going to change when we talk about the brain itself, which we're going to do on the next slide. A lot of these directions kind of rotate 90 degrees. We're going to talk about that in a second. And caudal or inferior are kind of the antitheses of these. They're the opposites, the antonyms of those. So that's it. Brains indeed, Gerbo. Brains indeed. So speaking of the front of our body, towards our front, we have anterior or ventral. I wouldn't say anterior or posterior for that, but you could. It's not. No, I would say that. That's not incorrect. But anterior usually means towards the front, and ventral means towards the belly. And for us, that's the same thing. Our front and our belly are the same thing. Oh. And posterior, some people call the butt the posterior. My grandma did, because that's grandmas say stuff sometimes. So posterior usually means behind, or our butt, or our back. So posterior is towards our back. Same thing with dorsal. Remember dorsal because of dorsal fins. Exactly, Gerbo. Exactly. There's a reason why that's called a dorsal fin. Is because it's on the fish's back, or the shark's back, or the dolphin's back. Or nope, can't. Mermaids don't have dorsal fins, so nope, never mind. But yeah, our spine is one of the most dorsal parts of our body because it's on our back. It's like kind of this. It is our back. So yeah, posterior and dorsal as far as a normal anatomical position, same thing. Not usually, but artistic interpretation's open. That's true, Gerbo. True. Mama Bear. Yep. Yeah. Grandmas be old school, indeed. Hey boy, come on back. Come on back, Fats. There's the next neuroscience question. What cells make up the myelin sheathing in our peripheral nervous system? Not the central, not the same answer as earlier, but the peripheral nervous system. You read a lot of dolphin books as a kid? I like that, Gerbo. I read a lot of other books, science books mainly as kids. Yeah, but what kind, Bearded Dragon? What kind? They are myelinated axons. Like, what makes up the myelin, though, dog? You read lots of science books and stuff as a kid. I loved them. Just fact books and science and stuff. I loved it. Freaking loved it. Alright, so that's that. Proximal and distal, like I said, aren't used in the brain, but medial and lateral. Talk about those. Anterior, ventral, cranial, caudal, all those. Well, maybe not so much cranial because the brain's inside the cranium, so you won't see that used as much or talked about as much. Caudal, rostral, inferior, superior, and another term, basal. You'll see that used right now. Gerbo was into animal books, dinosaurs, cats, horses, whatever, and fantasy books, usually involving said animals. I like it, Gerbo. I like it. Draco got it. Schwann cells are the PNS myelinated axon, or myelin sheaths, made up by Schwann cells, That's it. So like I said, we're going to see a lot of those same directions used in the brain, okay? Rostral kind of ends up referring to towards the nose, right? Because rostral means like beak, or rostrum, I believe, is like beak, like for a chicken. That's it. And then caudal, looks like this diagram says it turns down and goes towards our tail, which would be our tailbone, right? But also I've seen caudal referred to just as kind of the back of the brain. So I've seen rostral and caudal be, they're showing it here too. Rostral means this way, caudal could just mean this way, which would mean rostral and caudal refer to anterior or front. Those don't change. And posterior. Anterior, posterior. Front and back still, that didn't change for the brain. But rostral and caudal now mean front towards our beak, or caudal towards the back of our head. Okay, so those do change some. And you also see here dorsal and ventral no longer mean front and back, because that's not really the same thing for us, right? Or that's not really the same thing. Ventral means the bottom of the brain, or the belly of the brain, and then dorsal means top of the brain. Okay, whereas with us and with our body, dorsal was our back and ventral was our front, or belly and back. Dorsal is now the top and ventral is now the bottom. It's more oriented kind of like a fish. So there's that. Another term you'll see used synonymously with ventral will be basal, or towards the base, the bottom of the brain. Base is in basal as in base. And there's actually structures called the basal ganglia, which are centered, different nuclei and stuff along the basal, or the bottom portion of the brain, most often associated with movement. If I get a lecture for movement together for next week, we'll talk about those for sure. You can't talk about movement without talking about the basal ganglia. So we'll talk about those there, assuming I have that together. I may or may not. I don't know yet. So that's that. And then also, I have this here just to talk about talk about medial and lateral. Those still totally apply in the brain. Those are used all the time. There's still totally a middle of the brain and a lateral portion of the brain. So medial is just towards the center. Here you can see a good view of the longitudinal fissure, which is the name of the fissure that separates the two hemispheres. Okay, so medial most portion of the brain would be the lateral fissure. That's it. And then lateral is going towards the outside of the brain, or towards the cortex. That's it, on the sides anyways. That's it. That's it. And oh, I wrote myself a note so I wouldn't forget. And it's cut off by my my donation incentive there, or donation goal. But basal, we talked about basal. There's also another opposite term for that called apical. Okay, which we haven't seen before. A-P-I-C-A-L, apical. Okay, is that picking it up? Well, sort of. It's saying apical, but it's saying apical. It's not gonna. It gets it and then it changes it. But whatever. So apical is refers to the apex, right? It's like the top of a pyramid. That's the apex of it. That's the apical part of the pyramid, right? Right. You guys have seen that game, that new game is out, Apical Legends. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one, Gerba. You got it. Is that new shooter out, Apical Legends? That's the one. It refers to the apex, or the topmost point of it, right? So it's basal, the bottom or the base of the brain. There's also a basal part of a pyramid, the part that's on the ground, the base of it. And then the opposite of basal would be the apex, the topmost portion. And that's used here in the brain as well. Not as often, but you can see that term used. Not very often though. That's it. Yeah, exactly, Gary. You guys seen that new game out, Apical Legends? Exactly. So yeah, basal and apical are also used. Those are also antonyms used in anatomical reference in the brain. Not nearly as often as dorsal and ventral though. Dorsal and ventral is pretty standard. Same with anterior and inferior. Used way more often than rostral and caudal, but you can see rostral and caudal as well, so it's good to know what those mean. Atypical legends? I don't know about that one. And then, you know, for laterality and such, medial and lateral is kind of the standard. I haven't seen much else used for that. So when you're referring to the brain, again, medial and lateral is for middle or sides. When you're referring to that way, that plane, the X plane as it were. The Z plane is going to be mainly inferior and posterior and anterior. And then the Y plane is mainly going to be ventral and dorsal. But again, you can also see those other off terms that I mentioned as well. And that's that. That's how you kind of orient yourself to the different directions of the brain, because it's kind of hard to describe where something is in the brain without using these directions and say, well, that part of the brain is kind of this direction from this other part of the brain, right? It can be hard to say that, you know. It can be hard to try and describe where something is without using these different anatomical directions, which is why we use them, you know. Medial is not the sides, medial is the middle. Medial is in medium or median, like the median value. The median is the middle of something. Medial is the center of a Gerbo, right here. Lateral is the sides, right? Just like a lateral has to do with moving side to side. lateral is the sides of the brain. So medial towards the central fissure here, and then lateral out towards the sides, out towards the cortex. Okay, that's it. Then dorsal is at the top, ventral at the bottom, or apical, basal. And then rostral would be the front, caudal would be the back, or more commonly used, anterior and inferior. No, posterior. Sorry. Anterior, posterior. That's it. That's the one. Okay. All right. So that's those. That's all the directions and planes and whatnot. I'll go through some basic neuroscience terms as well. Okay. Not a fan of that joke, Draco? Why not? Everyone want to buy the grocery divider things, but the clerk behind the checkout keeps putting it back. I think it's pretty funny. takes a second, I think. All right, oh, I talked about this more here. But here we're seeing a coronal view of the brain, okay? As if somebody took that Corona bottle, smashed on their head. They got a slice of themselves going this way through their head now. Looking at themselves looking at their brain from the front. That's what we're seeing here in this brain. This is a coronal view of the brain, okay? Oh, because you're a cashier, Draco. I got it. Well, I mean, maybe just let people buy those freaking dividers if they want them. I'm just saying. Yeah, just be a part of the solution, not part of the problem, okay? Anyways, basal versus apical, we talked about that already. The basal ganglia are on the bottom. The apical dendrite, we've talked about, we haven't talked about it, but we've seen it. Those of you who saw us play Mozak and seen any of the pyramidal neurons that are on there. The apical dendrite is the big thick boy that comes off the apex of the soma, usually. They're referred to as the apical dendrite. That's the one. Gerba's got a science fact. If you take out all your veins and lay them end to end, you will die. Yep, true. Same, actually, fun fact, same with arteries. Yeah. Same thing. So yeah, this is a good view to look at a couple different structures here. There's that corpus callosum we often talked about. We often talk about bringing together the folds of or the hemispheres of the brain. We talked about the anterior cingulate last time. We talked about PTSD. Here's a good view of that. This would be parietal lobe up here. But then after this little incropping here, this next set of cortex right here, that is the cingulate cortex, right? We talked about the anterior cingulate. We talked about the posterior cingulate a bit. This would be, gosh dang it, you need a sagittal view to see the cingulate cortex very well. But this is a section of the cingulate cortex. Can't tell if it's anterior, dorsal, or posterior, but there it is. Okay. So we got those. This would be temporal lobe out here. We got more parietal lobe up in here. In here, we got insula. We talked about that area before. Where I said there's the temporal lobe, and then there's the the lateral fissure right above it. In here would be the insular cortex, or the insula. Okay. That's it. A wiggly cauliflower in your skull. That's the one. There it is. That's the one. But anyways, down here is going to be basal ganglia. This is the base portion, and up here is apical structures. Nothing up. I don't think there's anything up here specifically named apical whatever, but just so you have another idea about that. There's also so many bits. There are so many bits. It's true. I probably make it look easy because I've been talking about it like a lot. So I kind of know what I'm talking about sometimes. You know how it is. You know how it be. We talked about sulcus and gyrus before, but now I can actually show you those things. So sulcus is any one of these little incroppings of gray matter here. Your brain has those wrinkles, right? Those wrinkles go all the way in and come back out. Okay, the parts that go in, those little creases, that's a sulcus. Plural will be sulci. Okay, all these little incroppings here, all these little wrinkles, those are sulci. And the opposite of those, the parts that bulge out, that would be called a gyrus. Multiple would be called gyri. Okay. So all these, the parts that are sticking out of the brain, the knot creases, I can't think of the peaks, there we go, that's a better word for it. We got valleys and we got peaks, okay? The peaks are called gyri, or a gyrus. That's that, okay? See, the corpus callosum looks like what it is, a cloth holding it together. That's kind of, yeah, it's just kind of just a thick bundle of fibers holding it together. And it's not even, It's not even holding it together. That's not the purpose of that structure. It's not to hold the hemispheres together. They're held together by, you know, just the pressure of the skull and stuff like that, and they don't have anywhere to go. They're not in danger constantly of being pulled apart, you know. The corpus callosum is just there to help communicate, the hemispheres communicate. But I mean, yeah, if you want to imagine it that way, that they are helping it be held together, sure. There's also this other place that another band of commissural fibers down here. I forget the name of them, but there is another one down there. But this is by far the main communication between the hemispheres. There's also this one. I forget what it's called though. To transfer gossip, that's the one. Yep, that's the one. That's exactly it. Wait, when a brain's out of the skull, does it have a tendency to smush apart? It's got a tendency to just kind of like smash itself and like lay flat of it, or lay flatter eventually. It doesn't have a tendency to stay like what this brain looks like. This brain is this way because one is being suspended in this liquid, which is one of the reasons it is. And also because it's been formaldehyded and chemically treated and all that stuff, so it's like rubbery and it's not going to lose its shape. But if you see videos or pictures of somebody holding a brain, if you see a video, you can find that stuff on YouTube and stuff, of somebody holding like a fresh brain, they kind of have to keep moving it around and stuff like that, and transferring it their hand position and stuff on it, because it'll just like kind of like start to smush flat. It's like kind of like a 5 or 6 minute egg. So like it doesn't hold its shape very well. Yeah. So does it have a tendency to, does it have a tendency to pull apart? I don't know about that, but it does have a tendency to kind of like smash, you know? I couldn't say if the corpus callosum, if you're holding a brain, is going to help hold it together or not. I don't know. Brain gets a nasty smell after a while. I'll take your word for it, Florian. I would say anything outside of the body that's supposed to be kept alive and isn't, and is above ground still, probably doesn't smell good after a while. At least from one experience, I'll bet, Florian, yeah. Yeah. Like a whale, yep, too heavy out of liquid, yep, exactly, Gerbo. Yep, just like that. Brain was worse? Oh no! I see, Florian. Haven't had much experience with that, I'd take your word for it. Does the brain have much smell in your skull, alive and stuff? I have no idea. I would imagine that if you take it out, it probably smells like something, I don't know what. It doesn't have, it's not going to smell like your body, because it doesn't have like, you know, like odor releasing, like organelles and stuff on it. So I don't know if it would smell like anything. I mean, when you cut like fresh meat and stuff like that, does it have a strong smell? Not really. It kind of smells like something, but doesn't smell like much, right? I would guess the brain's the same way. Like it doesn't smell like strong, but it probably has a distinct odor, you know? I don't know. Live Oak said it would smell like blood. It is very vascular. I can see that. Also, welcome in, Live Oak. Good to see you. Does it smell like blood? Heart smells like blood or a slaughterhouse. Absolutely makes sense. More than muscle. I mean, that totally makes sense. What with it handling blood so much, yeah. Neurosurgeons could probably comment on that. Yep. Blood might be too strong a smell. Could be. Yeah, if you're smelling a brain, you might just be smelling blood. You may not be smelling the brain itself. I don't know. Couldn't say. Rook, what's up, man? We're here talking about brains like we do, man. Good to see you. How you doing, my friend? Florian said, I mean the smell of brain that has been cleaned of blood. Got it. There are chemicals that must be in the brain. Yep, I would guess in order to preserve it. Yeah. Got it. That's fine. Gerbo, I love your idle curiosity. I'm fine with that. Just woke up having a cup of tea. Dang, man. Sounds good. You got work tonight then, it sounds like? That night shift, though? I feel like many security people have that night shift. Okay, boy. Sure do. And sure do, man. Well, thanks for stopping by before you head out, man. It's always a pleasure to see you. Always a pleasure. Gerbo said, I used to wish I could clean my brains using brain fog and brains of brain fog and stuff. Bit of soap and water. Just all done. There you go. Wish it was easy like that. Totally, right? Eric Volp, welcome on in. Good to see you. How are you this evening? Skinny's so attentive. He's a very regal, attentive boy. He sure is, especially when there's treats involved, which soon there will be. Yep, he's waiting for a treat. He's sitting and hanging out. He's not ready to be comfy and cozy for the night. Thanks for welcoming Eric, guys. Good to see you, Eric. Okay. So yeah, those are Sulkai and Jairai, and those are them. Okay. We also talked about the longitudinal fissure. There's another good view of it here from the bottom of the brain. Okay, this is a basal view of the brain. If you're looking at it from the bottom, this is a basal or inferior view of the brain. Okay. Talked about sulci and gyri, again, the central or the longitudinal fissure, as the sulcus is also known, is one of the bigger sulci in the brain. Okay. So sulcus and fissure, those are the same, or used the same way in the brain usually. Some of the major landmarks would be the longitudinal fissure, which is a big sulcus. There's also the lateral fissure, which is going to separate the temporal lobe from the parietal lobe and the frontal lobes. Okay, you see that if you look at a brain from the side, see the temporal lobe on the bottom, there's that big crease right above it. That would be the the lateral fissure. Okay, and gyrus is often referred to as cortex as well. So there's the somatosensory cortex. I mean, yeah, it's cortex, and the entirety of your gray matter is technically cortex, right? But oftentimes they'll refer to gyri as cortex as well. They use them synonymously, right? So we saw that longitudinal fissure, and also colored here in red, just like the word. That's the fusiform gyrus. We talked about that a lot on the stream before, right? That's the part of our brain that helps us to see faces, or it's one of the things it does. That's specifically for seeing faces as well as other things. Okay, but that's a gyrus. This is a part sticking out. Doesn't really include sulci so much. There's just this bit of basal gyrus sticking out. Okay. Eric said, you convinced me to take out my neurobinders. Cool. I hope you learned something, man. That's what this is all about. Glad to have you. I'm glad you have neurobinders. That's freaking awesome. It's been a while since I looked at mine. Yeah, you should do that, Gerbo, for sure. We'll see you when we get back, friend. Rook said, always entertaining to jump in for some neuroscience talk. Glad you enjoy it. I was originally majoring in psychology before you ran out of money and couldn't continue your studies. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, that's where I found my love of neuroscience too. It was I was a psych major also. I took my first class on sensation and perception. I was like, oh my freaking god, this stuff exists. This is my jam. And it totally was. But I couldn't unfortunately go into any real advanced programs for it. It just wasn't in the cards for me. So yep, I taught a lot, or learned a lot of this stuff myself. I do have some graduate level coursework in neuroscience, but not as much or as specifically as I would like to have, unfortunately. It's been a year or so since your neuroscience classes, Eric. Well, a lot less time than me. It's been a while for mine. You were a computer science major obsessed with neuroscience. Is computational neuroscience? That's a thing. It's good to know, you know? If you could do undergrad again after you graduate, you do neuro. It's so interesting, right? So interesting. So interesting. Much research. Very wow. Indeed. Lots of stuff going on with neuroscience. Thanks for connecting with us. I appreciate you. Maybe we talk about this 3 nights a week, Eric, and anybody else in chat who doesn't know who we are just yet. My name is Ina Beta. I'm a neuroscience communicator. We talk about this stuff 3 nights a week. Usually prepared teaching portions just like this. Tomorrow we're doing some journal reviews. One, to talk about interesting stuff in neuroscience and science in general, but also one of the articles we're going to go through has some stuff that maybe you don't want to see in papers as often. So we're going to go through that as well. And it's still research and in a peer-reviewed journal and all that stuff, so it's not bunk, but it's not as strong as it could be, and we're going to talk about that. So, also, what's Broca's area associated with? Those of y'all that know that. Language, what kind, Gerbo? What kind? What kind? And also, I see that you guys took out Siamese the Guinea, which means this little fat one right here, who's been waiting so patiently. Hey, thanks for connecting with us. I appreciate that. I changed him, Draco. I changed him to more lay terms. It's not expressive and receptive language anymore. It's the more lay terms for those things. Expressive language is what, then? Anyways. This little guy's been waiting. Speaking, there you go, Draco. That's the one. Thank you guys for donating again to Fatboy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest little lab assistant on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. Eric, you had it too, but yes, I try to keep it to... I came into it using more jargon as well, and I'm finding that throws people off. I'm trying to keep it more accessible. Production of speech is also totally correct. Absolutely. But as far as the bot's concerned, it's speaking. Same kind of thing, really. Y'all both got it. Just Draco was a bit faster. Gerbo said, oh, Derp, I was imagining like a binder to hold a brain? I love it. I love it. I would love one of those. Anyways, that is those terms. Let me talk about some more. Indeed, Broca's aphasia is a sad, sometimes, yeah, if you have that kind of humor, I guess it could be morbidly funny, yeah. Having worked with patients like that, being an SLP, yeah, there's a lot going on there. I worked with a global aphasic patient as well. It's tough stuff, man. Being, growing up talking all your life and stuff like that, it's hard to, it can be tough to imagine that suddenly just being gone and not being able to do that anymore, Must be maddening, dude. Ooh. I would imagine morbidly funny as in like other dark humor and stuff like that. Not funny for the person it's happening to, of course, or because, or like at the person it's happening to, but you make your own jokes about it and stuff. I get it. I hear you. Bad boy. All right, so we talked about this as well, the soma, right? Soma basically is the, I believe, that's the Latin term, I believe, not Greek, Latin term, I think, one of those terms, for body, right? Not only does it refer to it the neuronal cell body, one of the few cells in the body where we actually make a distinction of where the body is in relation to the other parts of it, the dendrites, the axon terminals, right? The neuron has multiple parts to it. Most of the cells are just, they are the cell body and that's it. But soma refers to the neuron cell body, but also you can see it in other words like the word somatic, right? So if a person comes to the hospital and has a somatic complaint, they're talking about something in their body not feeling well, working well, something like that. Something with their body, right? So somatic refers to the body. Also, soma refers to that creepy survival game, right? The story-driven survival game Soma, where you're under the water and stuff, in a robot body. Probably why it's called Soma. It has to do with bodies and body swapping and all that stuff. Interesting stuff. Oh, you meant Wernicke's aphasia, Eric. Got it. The videos you've seen of temporarily induced Wernicke's aphasia, it's very interesting for sure. I worked with a Wernicke's aphasic patient, or a fluent aphasic person as well. Yep. Had a lot of stuff to say, but she just wasn't always on topic. Or like she would have a lot of trouble understanding what I said to her, and like it was just hard for her to keep up with the conversation. Yep. Hey boy. Yeah, she had a lot of stuff going on. Interesting cat. I liked her a lot. Made me brownies the last day I worked with her, and that was really nice of her. She's good people, A lot of trouble writing too. Writing was very difficult for her because I mean she had damage right there in that parietal, occipital, and temporal association area. So it's really hard for her to write. She could tell when she wrote something wrong, but then like she had a lot of trouble fixing it, She would just have like a feeling like that doesn't look right. Like you're right, it's not. Like follow that feeling. When you see something that doesn't look right, you're correct 100% of the time. But it was hard for her to like fix those errors after that. Somatic components in D&D, yep, bodily movements necessary for a spell. Exactly. Somatic, yep, has to do with your body. Exactly. You have somatic components. Yep, usually a movement that goes along with it. Oftentimes a point or a hand gesture of some sort. Exactly, Rook. Making those connections, man. I love it. I love it. And there's also the synapse. We've talked about synapses ad nauseum on the stream. We've actually had an entire teaching section devoted to synapses. Talked about that a lot, yeah? Rook's played a session or two. Me too, man. Me too. Been playing for over 10 years now, at least. Yeah, synapses, definitely a thing. Okay, we talked about those a lot. It's a junction between two neurons, as we talked about. Okay, typically between axon terminals and dendritic spines, but it can be other stuff too. It could be axon terminals and many different things. Sometimes, as we talked about, it's dendrite to dendrite. It's a dendrodendritic. Did you get it? Sort of. Dendrodendritic synapse. That could be a thing too. Okay, but usually when we're talking about a synapse, it's axon terminal to dendritic spine. And synapse comes from the roots syn, with or together, right? Because this is about a connection, and sys, the process or state. So synapse or synapsis, right? The state of being together, the process or state of being together. That's it. No problem, Gerbo. Never too late to start, and no amount of time necessary to enjoy. Ain't no gatekeeping or elitism here. You're good. So I thought that was interesting, the rude words that synapse is made up of, right? Yeah, the state of being together. That's kind of what the word roots mean. Boom, that's synapse. Boom. All right, here's some more word roots. This is what the rest of the lecture is going to consist of. Not lecture, gosh dang it, I need to stop saying that. The rest of the discussion is going to consist of, right? So here's some more coronal views of the brain. One of these is a healthy brain. One of these is obviously not a healthy brain at all. But here's more coronal views. Here's that corpus callosum again and such, right? See the gray matter and the white matter. I might have meant to talk about that somewhere, but I guess not. Anyways. Yeah, got him. I like it, Rook. Looks so porous. This one does, yeah, for sure. But this one is somewhat as well. It's got the different sulci and stuff in it. Yep. See the insular cortex in there and all that? Yeah. I don't have it down here. Was I going to do it in the next one? No, I guess not. I meant to talk about gray matter and white matter somewhere in here. I guess I didn't put it in here on accident. I was very tired when I made this, when I made these slides, but the gray matter is the portion on the outside here, the darker stuff, right? All around the outside of the cortex. We talked about this before a little bit. It's a bit more apparent in this brain. The brown portion would be considered the gray matter if this was a healthier and probably not preserved brain. And the white matter, of course, is the portion in the center that is myelinated, all lipidized and stuff. Is the white matter, okay? All the axons projecting into the center, through the center of the brain and out of the brain, sometimes into the brainstem, or the brainstem and the spinal cord and all that stuff from the cell bodies in the cortex, right? Of course, the corpus callosum is all myelinated axons, so that's all white matter always. Okay. Is it porous or just bloody spots? These are just bloody spots. Yeah, these little dots in here, those are just bloody spots. Blood or some other liquid. Yeah, that's all. There aren't actual like holes all throughout it. No, this should be. Oh, it's white matter in here. This should be solid, right? There shouldn't be like little holes and stuff poked all through it. Yeah, corpus callosum's hanging out doing its thing, you know, whatever. Indeed, Aruk, got some blood in there. Yeah, these are all just little splotches of blood. There shouldn't be little pin pokes and stuff all throughout the brain. That would denote some difficulty. You might see that a little bit in like Alzheimer's and stuff like that as the brain atrophies and whatnot. But for the most part, that should be solid. Your brain hates having wasted space. Just will not let that happen if it can avoid it. So that denotes brain injury. Yes, it would. Yes, as you can see here, like there's a lot more empty space in this brain, right? This is a brain with advanced what's called CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Okay, basically chronic traumatic encephalopathy is basically you getting hit in the head a lot and the brain atrophies because of that. Happens a lot to boxers, football players, stuff like that. Muhammad Ali had chronic traumatic encephalopathy because he got socked in the head a bunch. Not that he wasn't a great fighter or anything like that, but boxers get punched in the head. I mean, it's normal hazard of the job. It's in your job description. You're gonna get punched in the face. You can live with that. I mean, not as long or with as high a quality of life as you would, as like this person did. But yeah, you can still live with that. You're gonna have greatly diminished function, but yeah. And like I said, this one isn't preserved. You can tell because there's like this blood and stuff. This one was probably preserved, so it's going to be a little shrunken compared to a normal brain. Or the black bits at the bottom, probably just decoloration from the preservation chemicals and stuff. It's like there's some blood vessels in here too, but these are a different color than the blood vessels would normally be, just because they changed colors. That's all. Just like let's go back to that brain. There's this brain. Like, that's not normal brain color. Not at all. That brain isn't like white in your head. This is white, like white matter in your brain. Like, nah. That's not what a brain is normally colored like. It's like this because it's been preserved and stuff. It's like this one. This one's a more natural coloring. But anyways, cephal, okay, refers to the brain or the head. White matter isn't actually white. It's pretty white. You can see it here too. White matter is pretty white. That's why they call it that. It's actually quite white. Pink and squishy because we eat shrimp. That must be it. Just like a flamingo, right? Yep, there's the next neuroscience question. Name the inner layer of the meninges. It's the innermost layer. Shrimpspiracy. That's it. Eric's popping the lid on that one, dude. Draco got it. The PM otter. That's the inner layer of the meninges. Draco's on these like white on rice, guys. Just saying. Easy source of BDNF. Just gonna put that out there. Anyways, cephal has to do with the brain or the head. That word root cephal, anything with that in it, refers to the brain or the head. You might have heard of Octopi or squids were being referred to as cephalopods. Not an accident. Nope. They're actually referring to like brain. They're using that as like the head. They're referring to the brain and the head of a squid being very prominent, right? Cephalopod, I believe, would be like head foot. It's kind of like all they are is head and then tentacled feet. Why they're named as such, right? That's not an accident. That word cephal or cephalo is in there for a reason. It's actually referring to the head. Talking about shrunken brains, yeah, indeed. That's a pretty advanced case of chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Yep. But it's used. Yeah, you see that word cephal all over the place. I'm not gonna. This is gonna be in one of the challenge words later, so I don't want to put any examples. But anyways, pathy can also be a feeling, like in the word empathy, or it can be a disease, like in encephalopathy. Okay, so encephalopathy is a disease of the brain. For instance, this disease of the brain, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, right? Chronic because it happened over a long period of time or for a sustained amount of time. Traumatic because it dealt with trauma to the brain, in this case kinetic trauma. And encephalopathy because it caused a brain disease. So, kinetic force applied to the brain over a long time causing a disease in the brain. There you go. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. That's what that means, right? Like I said, those different words and word roots, so you can kind of break down what that means and any of those big science words and terms. There you go. Gerbo holds her own head nervously. Just don't be a boxer or nothing. You should be fine, okay? So this is definitely one of the dangers of being a boxer long term, being an MMA fighter long term, being martial artist long term, being involved in contact sports, anywhere from American football, which is really, really bad for this, and rugby, really bad for this, all the way down to soccer. I mean, soccer players get kicked in the head and bump heads and stuff like that once in a while. Not nearly as often as those other high contact sports, but it still happens, Hockey too, yep. Hockey is, yep. Not only can you get, checked and bumped around in hockey and stuff, but you also get in legitimate boxing matches, actual fights where you're gonna get punched in the face. Yep, that too. It's got back, Dream Sanity. Welcome back, friend. Good to see you. So yeah, like I said, this is like being hit and knocked unconscious and a lot of hits to the head over many years. It takes a long time to get this. Like if you've had a concussion, a small concussion, been knocked out cold for like a few seconds, like you're not in danger of this. This takes a long time, a lot of abuse, a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. See, we're talking about the brain. I mean, you can kind of always assume we're talking about the brain, man. That's what we do. That's what we do. One of the things we do. And we're talking about some word roots in reference to the brain or neuroscience. This is cephal, brain or head. Pathy can be feelings or disease. Usually when we're talking about the brain, we're talking about the latter. We're referring to a disease of some sort of disease, right? The brain has to do with empathy, of course, but when we're talking about neuroscience, usually we're talking about a disease. Etymology, exactly, Dream Sanity. Gerba said, hockey players don't like saying they have a concussion because they get benched, as they should. There's also that's a bad part of hockey culture right there. Like if you have a brain injury, like get out of the game. Like you need to go take care of yourself. Like that's not safe. But I guess if it's seen as not macho or whatever to say something, like that's a problem. Like people could really be hurting themselves further, yeah. Also, archaic tough it out expectation. Yeah, there's that. There's some of that machismo. That's not a good thing. That's really bad. Like there should be nothing wrong with saying, I got hit in the head really hard and I can't see straight. I'm having ringing in my ears. I lost consciousness for a second. Like, you shouldn't be out sliding on the ice. No. And there should be no shame for that. Like, that's very dangerous for those people. That's bad news, dude. Yeah, exactly. Just go skate off that concussion. It's fine. Yeah, go out there. No! Get that person out of the game and go make sure they're okay. Jeez. What you got second string guys for, right? Ooh, I don't like that at all. Florian says, there's a well-known court case where a Harvard football player who had had 2 concussions used deadly force for self-defense, arguing he was in life or death situation when someone tried to mug him. Maybe he wouldn't have done that if he hadn't had multiple concussions. I don't know, Depends on the situation too. I mean, he might have thought he was in a life or death situation. It's hard to say in a courtroom what you should have done when your brain is telling you you're in a life or death situation, I say if I was being mugged or in a fight or something like that, I don't know what I'll do. It's possible I could end up killing somebody. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to know. I do know that if I feel like my life is in danger, I'm going to do everything I can to keep myself safe. And if I end up severely injuring or killing somebody because of it, like, I'm not a trained fighter. I'm not a police officer, you know? I feel like people are brought in on charges like that, and they are expected to have followed the law in that situation. First of all, know what the law is. If you're attacked, what can you do about it? Which people don't think about that. Like, they think about, I'm being attacked, I need to get this guy off of me. And two, like, responding like a police officer would without deadly force unless necessary. Like, dude, people, and like, do you expect everyone to be trained like that? Come on. Like, not everybody knows that stuff. And Gerbo said, yeah, they taught us a bit about legality in the short self-defense situation class you took. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, but like, not everybody takes a self-defense class. Not everybody like learns the law about what they can do to defend themselves, you know? Like, if people are defending themselves, they're going to defend themselves. It's a very primal thing at that point. Like, somebody might die, you know? And both people in the situation are doing their damnedest to make sure that it's not them. Sorry, somebody might die there. Like, you can't expect everybody to react in the way police officers do, like, or a military person. Like, unless you're trained for combat, you can't hold people to that standard. You can't. Dream Sandy said, I was once told the dead don't speak. If a tree falls in the forest, nobody hears it. Nobody knows how it fell. There's that too. Yep. There's also that. His spooky paravo's dead men tell no tales. Got him. Yeah, it's really hard to bring law in there. It is. One, because again, if a person's dead, they can't tell you what happened. And two, like, yeah, life or death struggle. Like, I'm sure as shit not going to be thinking about what's legal and what's not. I'm going to be thinking about, like, what puts that son of a bitch down away and stop attacking me the quickest and with the least bodily harm to me. Like, screw that guy. I want that guy done. Like, just stop. I want him incapacitated. If you live through it, cool. That is secondary as far as I'm concerned. No. Florian said it's interesting because basically the court had to address the issue of brain damage. Yes, that complicates it, right? In a criminal rather than civil context. I mean, yeah, it becomes criminal if you kill somebody accidentally or purposely. You know, true. It's crazy. In the future, it might be possible to reboot neurons and get a signal out. I mean, in the case of this dream, Sandy, those neurons are dead, so not really. It's not like they just need to be jump started or something where they just kind of stopped firing. Like, they're literally dead. I mean, as you can see here, like, there's atrophy. Like, there aren't neurons there anymore to be jump started. It's a little different, you know? You'll oxytocin break here. I see y'all took out fabulous feline fencer Felicia, which means Fat Boy. Fat Boy's being climby boy. He gets a treat. Y'all get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Boy Earth, his Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest little lab assistant on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. Oh, maybe Dream Sanity. I don't know, man. I couldn't say. Am I like Frankenstein in the brain? I don't know. I don't know, man. Gerba said you might be able to grow new ones in the future. Maybe. They're looking at ways to do that with like neural stem cells and stuff. But we talked about this in when we talked about glial cells. There's that glial scarring that happens, which like axons in the brain tend to try to come back together somewhat, but glial scarring, where there's that brain damage, like glial cells like really propagate into that area and like form a scar tissue there and kind of never go away. They actively like shut down that process too. And we just don't know why that happens. It seems like it'd be counterintuitive for the long term. You know, I can see in the short term when glial cells move in there and kind of clean out the dead neurons and stuff like that, because those could become neurotoxic to surrounding neurons. But you think after that, like, you know, the glial cells would kind of recede and, you know, let there be some traffic through there, but they just don't. Grow new neurons to wire into the brain, or new brains, yeah, something like that. Could be interesting. Exceptions, supposedly psychedelics. Interesting. Hadn't heard about that. I'm sure there's ways they're looking at getting around that stuff for sure. Indeed. Anyways, that's those two word roots. Oh, and also there's the next neuroscience question. What is Wernicke's area associated with? It's going to be the opposite of Broca's area. Yes, Eric, what's the more lay term for that though? What would we call that? Whereas a bio isn't necessarily 100% efficient. Yep, we're all in work in progresses in evolution for sure. Yeah, but like a one word, one word, one simple word. There you go. Draco should have had it. Oh, yeah, the word. One word. Understanding. There you go. Draco's got it. Understanding. Right. So Brocus is speaking, listening, or Vernicus would be understanding. Yes. Welcome on in, Random Letters. Good to see you, man. It's not herbalism. Nope. Not that one. Nope. Understanding's it. All right. More word roots. Sight has to do with a mature cell. Okay. Yeah, that's good to be Draco. Give him most of it. I mean, he had it too. Like I said, I'm not trying to have these things be up for debate and stuff like that anymore. Bot's taking care of it. Anyways, so sight has to do with a mature cell, like an astrocyte. We talked about those types of glial cells, right? Astrocytes are I believe, most common. There's those. There's a parasite. We talked about those when we talked about the blood-brain barrier, the ones that wrap around the blood or the blood vessels and kind of form another layer of protection against things that might be trying to come in or out of the blood-brain barrier without necessarily being able to do that. So that is another type. Lymphocytes are the mature white blood cells or mature immune cells of the body. Okay, so cyte usually refers to a mature cell. That's it. No, I got you, Draco. I got you. So as I look at the prompt that the question gives you too, I'll tell you how many words are in it. Right? If there's only one word there, then typing a 2-word answer is not going to get it to you. Usually. Okay, hypo and hyper. These are used a lot in not only neuroscience, but in medical terms in general. We often talk about, well, you guys know what hypo and hyper mean. Hypo is usually under or below. Hyper is excessive or over. Easy peasy, we got that. You usually refer to these in popular culture in respects to temperature, right? Talking about if we're too cold, we might get hypothermia. If we're too hot, we can get hyperthermia, right? But we also talk about hypo and hyperactivity in neuronal firing or in neurons. We talk about that as well, especially in neuroscience. There's the term hypo, and I guess there's also hyperkalemia, which would be this hypokalemia would be a low amount of sodium or salt in your blood. So that's another term where that's used also. Okay. Hypothalamus, good one, Eric. There you go. Hypothalamus being under the thalamus. Precisely. Exactly. Talked about that as well. But oftentimes hypo and hyper, you're going to see those used with activity. You're going to see areas that are hypoactive, areas that are hyperactive, overactive, underactive. Use those synonymously. Exactly. Natremia would be sodium. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Kalemia is potassium. Thank you. I get those mixed up sometimes. Appreciate you, Florian. So hypokalemia is low sodium in the blood. Hyponatremia is high sodium, or hypo is low sodium in the blood. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's the one. Now we talk about, or you'll hear about those a lot. I'm talking about obviously the body and medical conditions and stuff like that, dealing with more systemic things. Not so much in the brain, but you can. Hypokalemia or hypo or hyperkalemia, hypo or hypernatremia can definitely cause damage in the brain due to different things. Anyways, hypo and hyper, y'all know what those mean for the most part. Yep. Here are some other ones. Here's a nice pyramidal cell. We talked about those earlier. Here's the apical dendrite coming off the apex of that soma, that somewhat pyramidal shape to this cell. Apical dendrite is that big thick boy coming off. Okay, we talked about that a bit earlier. And we can also see that long spindly axon coming off the back. That's a very good picture. That's very good. See another pyramidal ax or pyramidal neuron over there with its apical dendrite also. Anyways, so I want to give you another example of that. So neuro obviously refers to the nervous system, right? As in neuroscience, the understanding of neurons or a nervous system. That's kind of a gimme, just in case you guys didn't put that one together. So logy, or often seen as ology, okay? Logy is the study of, so neurology is the study of the nervous system. Easy peasy, right? Right. All right. There's also gnosis or nausea. Okay. It's a knowledge of. Okay. It's like abstract art. It kind of does. It kind of does. Yeah. But yeah, gnosis or nausea refers to the knowledge of. Say diagnosis would be referred to as differential diagnosis. We're deciding if it's one thing or another thing. So knowledge of one thing versus another thing. And then prosopagnosia kind of has two things before that. The a part is as we talk about down here, the absence of, the loss of knowledge, right? So prosopagnosia, we talked about that before, and being able to not recognize faces anymore. So it'd be a loss of the knowledge of recognizing faces or facial cues, things like that. Okay. Like I said, you know these words and these roots, you can kind of put together what things mean. There's another term we'll come across, or another word root you'll see a lot in not only neuroscience but medicine in general. Gnosis, nausea. Gen, you'll see that a lot. It means the birth of. So regeneration would be growing again or being birthed again. Okay. A or an in a word, we talked about that already. It means the loss or absence of. Like an anosmia would be the loss of the sense of smell. Aprosodia or aprosodia, loss of ability to change your prosody or your pitch in your voice, your inflection in your voice to be very monotone all the time. That can happen if there's some right hemisphere damage sometimes, right? And you might have your emotions intact and stuff like that, but you just don't have the ability to show that with your voice anymore, you know? You might be very angry, but you're still talking like this. You might just be like fuming mad or really angry, but you're still talking like this, and you just can't really change that because it doesn't work anymore. Like, imagine if somebody's like super, super pissed and they're just talking to you just like this and they can't really change it. Like, that's kind of what that would be like, you know? I mean, somebody was telling us a story about that before, where like a teacher of theirs or something, or a parent of theirs had aprosodia, and like they would actually have to like use a scripted phrase to say like, no, I'm really upset, I'm actually really mad right now, because they couldn't say it with their voice anymore. They couldn't express that, you know? There's also the term you probably heard before, anoxia. I'm sure you can guess what that is. If you can't, let me know, I'll explain it. But yeah, those are examples of a or an being used. Okay. See, there's a lot, usually the absence of. Okay. And then psycho, mind, mental, unconscious, referring to all those kinds of things. So psychology, psychology, okay, would be the study of the mind, the study of our mental faculties, the study of the unconscious, things like that. Right? Anoxia. What's in the air, Gerbo? What do we breathe? You got this. Good boy. All right, let's move it on. Here's some other word roots. Oxygen, exactly. So anoxia would be no oxygen, lack of oxygen, right? That's it. Part of your body is anoxic, or you have anoxia, right? You're not getting, usually refers to you're not getting enough blood to the brain, cause you to pass out, cause you brain death eventually. But yeah, anoxia just refers to not getting enough oxygen or not getting any oxygen. So these things we talked about before here on stream, we'll put them together in a second. But telo, or tello, usually means end or completion of something. And a mere, right, usually means a part of something. So there's a telomere. We talked about these bits, this bit of our genes before. The bits at the very end, they usually don't code for anything and shorten over the lifespan of these specific chromosomes being divided over, you know, bunches of different times across cells or across cell divisions, right? But the telomere is the end part of the cell. Or sorry, no, the end part of the chromosome, okay, within the cell. That's a telomere. A sarcomere would be a part of a muscle. We haven't talked about that before, but a sarcomere is kind of the functional unit of each of your muscles, where what are they called? Myo something. I forget their myosin, I think, something like that. I forget the names of the little proteins, but sarcomeres themselves are little capsules of muscle where they kind of like move together and stretch out again, based on the action of these little ribbed parts, and there's little myosin, I believe, heads that kind of ratchet along those little knobs and kind of ratchet the muscle together to contract the muscles. And then, yeah, it's myosin. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, it's been a while since I talked about that. And then release that action as your muscles stretch out. Okay. But the sarcomere is a part of your muscle, and that's kind of the functional part of it. We'll talk about those maybe a bit more when we talk about movement, whenever we do that. Could be next week, could be later than that. There's the next neuroscience question. What is hippocampus associated with? Eric got it. Boom. Memory. Right on that one, dude. There you go. 50 BDNF to Eric. Thanks for connecting with us. I appreciate you. All right, so OMA. Your hippocampus is functioning well. I like it. So OMA is what some people call their grandma, but also refers to, you probably heard of lots of different types of OMAs. Okay. Ninja, stop. It's actually where hippos go to learn. Ninja, thank you. And like I said, you probably heard of lots of different OMAs when they're referring to cancer, right? Mo the Bone Lady, what's up, my friend? How you doing? Did we do this again? Did it not tell me that? Okay, good. Okay, cool. Mo, my friend, how you doing? Can we get a shout out for Mo the Bone Lady, please? Over making some super unique content on Twitch. She's an animal skeleton preparator, and she's putting together a otter skeleton for quite some time now, but she's also going to be putting together some other skeletons. So I would guess sometime over the next year or two, she'll begin putting together a llama skeleton as well. It's going to take a while to get that all prepared, though, so as far as I understand. The stream is going well, Mo. The stream is going well. How the heck are you? How you doing, Mo? Hope you're doing well. We're just doing our thing, you know? Yeah, I do it, Gerbo. She's good people. You're going to enjoy it. Dat llama, indeed. Yep. It's going to be some interesting stuff. Yeah, she's streaming that I think pretty much every day. Didn't you also do some like book reading or something? I like that at one point too, Mo. But for the most part, putting together them animal skeletons. Yep. You want to see a giant sloth skeleton? I got you, Mo. I usually don't wait for meal times. If I'm hungry, I just go eat, and that's probably why I got a weight problem. I'm trying to do something about that, though. I get you. Is it true? Are there bones inside all of us? Confirmed. I recall the wild too. There you go. Okay, so I thought I remembered that. Skeletons are dope. I would agree. In my opinion, you know, I like brains better. Skeletons are also a very important part of us. Indeed. You can't have a body without a skeleton, or at least a human body without a skeleton. Just you can't have a building without a foundation. Skeletons are hugging us right now on the inside. It's true. It's true. And brains are also amazing. It's true. I think the human body in general is amazing. I love it. I love it. But thanks for coming to see us tonight, Mo. I appreciate you. We're going over some very basic word roots and terminology and stuff like that. Taking it back to the basics, you know? Doing it. Like I was saying, OMA has to do with lots of different types of cancer. Most of the time, if you see a word ending in OMA, it's some type of cancer. Okay? There's meningioma. Anybody can guess what that would be cancer of? Cancer of the what part of the brain? Same with the glioma. You could probably guess cancer of what kind? What kind? What part of the brain? I'm sure you guys can answer that. Meninges, exactly, Eric. Yep, and Gerbo, the meninges. Meningioma is cancer of the meninges. And yep, Gerbo, you got it. Glioma would be a cancer of one of the types of glial cells. Exactly, right? Usually they'll just put a word in front of OMA, and that's the type it's a cancer of. With the exception of emia. Emia refers to in the blood, like we talked about that word before, hypokalemia, which was low, not sodium, but potassium in the blood. Okay. Leukemia also refers to blood cancer. There's a picture of it here. Leukemia is just overproliferation of leukocytes, or white blood cells, I believe, in the blood. It's a form of blood cancer. Okay. Lymphoma is also another blood cancer. They don't come out and say like hemoma. It just doesn't work together. But leukemia also is a type of cancer. Usually we see OMA. Sometimes we'll see emia too. Anemia, not in the blood. Anemia just means no blood. Anemia means you don't have enough. Your blood's just absence of blood. Yep, that's it. No blood. Not. It's not in the blood. It's just no blood. That's it. How much of coral reefs are bones? Dream sanity? I think it's a good 50%. There's the calcified base, and then there's the zooplankton that live all over the outside of them. It's some good amount of it. I know that. Gerber said massive reef structures are formed in each individual stony coral organism or polyp. Secretes a skeleton of calcium carbonate. Most stony corals have small polyps, averaging 1 to 3 millimeters, 0.04 to 0.12 inches in diameter. Entire colonies can grow very large and weigh several tons. Like the Great Barrier Reef can be freaking massive, right? Florian shares is a story by Norman Spinrad called Carcinoma Angels, about a man who fights his own cancer with visualization. That sounds... Is that a work of fiction or non-fiction? That sounds interesting. Either way. Anyways, emia refers to in the blood. So hypo, we learned before, was under or low. Glyce would be like sugar. So low, and emia, in the blood. So low amounts of sugar in the blood. Hypoglycemia. People that have that, or hypoglycemia, often need to eat something sugary every once in a while to kind of boost that blood sugar back up. I don't know how related that is to pancreatic functioning and diabetes, but that's a thing that happens. Hyperglycemia is... leads to or is a symptom of diabetes that, as we know it, blood sugar that's too high. So it'd be high amounts of, or too much blood or sugar in the blood. It'd be hyperglycemia. There you go. We talked about anemia also. Yeah, right, Gerbo? Like I said, you know that you learn these roots, you learn how to, what all the different processes and stuff they're talking about, how they're related to, right? It's good stuff. And then osis often refers to a disease or process as well, kind of like the last slide. We talked about gnosis or nausea, also referring to that. So like trichotillomanosis or osmosis, right? Trichotillomanosis is a type of disease. Osmosis is a process, okay? But yeah, those also refer to diseases or process. Osis or gnosis, nausea, all kind of refer to diseases or processes. Or osis, I believe, is more specific to process. Osia and osis and stuff like that. Well, osis is yeah, it's a little bit different. But those all refer to diseases. Some of them refer to more specific things. That's it. Gerba said, my mom's hypoglycemic and my blood sugar crashes easily. Okay, yeah, you probably got some of her genes in there. Don't know if it could be termed, though. And your grandma's diabetic. In general, it sounds like there's some familial difficulty with managing blood sugar properly. Indeed. Also, quest time for whoever's ready. Exclamation point quest to join it. Evelyn, my friend, is here. Good to see you, Evelyn. How you doing? How's your weekend and stuff? And everybody who is here and hadn't had a chance to answer yet, how was your weekend? What'd you get up to? Anybody go see Captain Marvel? I did. Mrs. Beta and I did. It was a movie. It was okay. Get Fat's treats, indeed. You need at least one member of the neural net going, and we got at least one. So we good. Am I see it this weekend, Ninja? Yeah, it's okay. I said I would recommend it if you're going to go see Avengers, because it will tie some stuff together for you, but it's not the best movie. Gerba sat with mom and watched TV. Cool. Good times. Awesome. Song sounds weird. Evelyn also hasn't seen Captain Marvel, but you're thinking about it. Cool. Draco worked, making sure people don't buy those the separators of the checkout counter. Got it. Makes sense. All right. Oh, I do see y'all took out Siamese the Guinea, which means this little fat one right here. He gets a treat. He's looking so stoic and regal right now. Y'all get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund. I'm dedicated to keeping him the fattest little lab assistant on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. Look at this boy. Ready for a little cover up? Oh yeah, he's ready. He's ready for it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's time for a burrito. That boy's the best little burrito on Twitch. Excited about next week's games? Me too, Ninja. Yep. Satisfactory and Sekiro. If both of them are satisfactory, I'll be happy. Burrito, indeed, Gerba. That's the one. Alright. On to the next terms. These are other word roots we've talked about many times before. We talked about ipsilateral and contralateral. So ipsi means the same side or self. Okay. Self side or same side. Okay. When you say, as in the word ipsilateral, which means usually when we're talking about the brain, ipsilateral is the same side of the brain or same side of the central nervous system, same side of the body. Okay. So, for instance, this fiber here is traveling ipsilaterally up the side of the brain. Same thing with this fiber. It's traveling ipsilaterally up the side of the brain. Versus contra, meaning opposite or against, right? Kind of like the arcade game Contra, where you're fighting against aliens the whole time, okay? Opposite or against. Contralateral, meaning opposite side or against the side, crossing sides, right? So you can see these fibers here projecting up and crossing or going to the contralateral side of the brain. These red ones are doing very, very visually or very, very obviously. These slighter blue ones are also doing that. Are crossing contralaterally to the opposite side of what looks like the brainstem here. So that's the olivary complex here. So I guess we're seeing medulla and some pons here. Okay. That's it. What part of our brain makes us attend to movement in our peripheral vision? It's not occipital lobe. Nope. It's not rods, not cones. Nope, nope, nope. Not a photoreceptor. What part of our brain, y'all? Not part of the retina. Seeing eye biddies. Nope. Not that. Not that one. They got another clip. Oh my gosh, clips abound tonight. Can my freaking neighbors stop like throwing bowling balls next door? Dude, I swear. Oh man, the bot's not being great. He's only giving you, or it's only giving you some letters from one of the words. It's part of the brainstem. Talked about it before. Talked about it when we talked about the visual system as well. If you don't know it, you'll see the answer in a moment. No worries. Anyways, share a wall with our neighbors? Indeed we do. The homunculus? No, that's not the homunculus. Yeah, we share this entire wall with our neighbors here. Yep. You would think that they'd be better neighbors having been our previous landlords, but no, they're not. They're the worst neighbors we ever had here. Whatever. Good Lord, I hope you guys can't hear that. Anyways. Superior something. Like this drawing, it's a good one, right? It's a good one. Okay, good. I'm glad you guys can hear it. We are in a duplex, Ninja, yes. There are two similar units right next to each other, yes. This neighborhood is filled with a lot of varying types of houses. Some of them are little duplexes, and then like right across the street we have like a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. Like they're all just very different floor plans, layouts, types of houses, all that stuff, all designed by the same dude. Like by hand, the same architect is actually still alive and lives in the neighborhood. But every house in this neighborhood is just a unique floor plan, unique shape, unique design, all that stuff. There's no like cookie cutter track house neighborhood around here. It's all hand-drawn, totally unique stuff. So very interesting stuff. Oh, did I dream sanity? I didn't know that. Oh, the superior colliculus. That's the one. Yes, I did. Superior colliculus. That's at the part of the brain. Helps us kind of attend to stuff in our periphery reflexively, okay? Kind of like the inferior colliculus is where our startle response is for like for sound. We'll hear a sound suddenly, we'll like try to orient ourselves to that. That's the inferior colliculus, okay? Kind of does, Dream Sanity, kind of does, a little bit. And it says the house next door to you is kind of weird. It's got a normal house with like an apartment tacked on. Oh, it's got a little in-law unit. I've seen and heard of those before. Around the school that I work at, there's some houses where like it almost looks like that, where there's like a normal house and a garage and stuff like that, but then like in like part of the driveway almost there's like a separate little house. I don't know if it's a house or if it's supposed to be like a completely separate like storage unit or something. It's not big enough to even be like a room. I don't know what the hell it is, but I want to like wait for one of those to go on sale and then like go take a tour of the place and see what it's supposed to be. I doubt very much it's supposed to be like a bedroom, like in the driveway, like butting up to the sidewalk, but it's not connected to the house either. I don't know what the hell it is. It's got a window in the front too. Definitely not a smoker. Nope, it's definitely not a meat smoker. It's got like a roof and everything. It's not like, no, not like that. I don't know what it is. It's weird. I don't know. They're very weird little units. I don't know what they're supposed to be. They just said there's a house somewhere in your area that's like split in half with a pool in the middle. That's very strange. Interesting. They have like a shared pool, communal pool, a communal, if you will. All right. More word words. Whoa, Ethan, I'll come in with an epic search. Jeez. Whoa, a serious search. Also bringing up our question. We haven't talked about this yet. Well, what is a controversial opinion that you have? That's very strange, Ninja. Very strange. So opia or opsia refers to sight or vision. So myopia kind of refers to short-sightedness. Hyperopia would be far-sightedness. Okay. Yeah, so those are, we talked about earlier. Anopsia refers to a lack of sight or no sight, right? No, anopsia is a way to refer to blindness sometimes. Okay. Osmia refers to the sense of smell. So anosmia is the lack of sense of smell. That's that. Yeah, what kind of controversial opinion you got? Ethanol says taxation is theft. Okay, that's you, man. I don't agree with that one, but hey, everybody's got their opinions. I mean, taxes are definitely good things in my opinion. I'd be inclined to in order to, especially to improve education, pay more. So education could use that money and improvement. You could also use, like, especially in the school district around here, people, it could be administrated and superintended better. But you know, whatever. I thought says for the queue, EA's done nothing wrong. Why, that is definitely controversial. Yeah, a lot of people would disagree with you on that one, Ninja. I don't know, I can't say that I ever play many of EA's titles, so I kind of don't care about it as much, but I see what people are upset. Dream Sandy, for a lot of people, that is controversial. It's not necessarily a function of money. You can still have representational currency without taxation. Those are two separate things. Even if we didn't use money, it could still be taxation, you know? Yeah, a lot of people would say that that is definitely controversy, you know? Or rather, unpopular. It's an unpopular idea. Thank you, boy. Hey, burrito. So, phasia or lalia, give me my cursor, there it is. Phasia or lalia has to do with speech or utterances, okay? So, aphasia, lack of speech, lack of utterance, okay? Coprolalia, we talked about that before, is basically shit talk, or that term where people shout obscenities and stuff like, or not necessarily shout, but repeatedly say obscenities and stuff like that, often associated with Tourette syndrome. Very, 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 very few people with Tourette syndrome actually do that, but of course it's a very prominent and I guess kind of wacky symptom of that kind of thing, so that's what gets paid attention to. So most of the time that there is a portrayal of Tourette's in popular media, that's what's played up as the coprolalia, even though that's not a very large part of it at all. So. Also, kind of like how you know, if somebody has a seizure disorder in popular media, it's always grand mal seizures, always, but like a lot of people with epilepsy don't have grand mal seizures. They have petite mal seizures or other types of seizures. So there's a lot more to it, but you know, salient portions, I guess. Yeah, exactly. There you go, Dream Sandy. It's not necessarily related. Not necessarily. Now, to say, I think not a lot of people realize that you can get EA's entire library, including new releases, for $15 a month. I don't think they do. No. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't think that. And you know, how much should EA be saying that? How much should they be advertising it? If many people don't realize that, are they doing a good job of giving people all the options and information? Some would argue that no, they're not. All right, dys. We see this a lot. It means abnormal or bad. So dysarthria usually means gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. You know, difficulty with, or different movement, difficulty with movement. Dysarthria often means difficulty controlling something, difficulty with coordination, things like that. You have dysarthria in your body, so you have difficulty like moving in certain ways. You can have dysarthria in your speech musculature to cause a lot of different voice difficulties, depending on the type and nature of your dysarthria. It can cause a very breathy voice, a very strangled voice, a very hoarse voice, all kinds of different stuff. Yeah, dys usually means there's some sort of abnormality with it. Dystrophy usually means abnormal way of developing, things like that. Yeah. Jimmy Neutron's coming. Good to see him. Mesothelioma is rough. That's what I've heard. I've heard that. Welcome on in, Jimmy Neutron. Good to see you. How are you? I've never seen that movie, by the way. Never seen that. Ninja says, at the very least, EA is no worse than other big publishers. They seem to get a lot more shit. They do. They do. They're just very much, I'd say, they are kind of the kingpins, I think, of publishing kind of literally the same game with a few tweaks to it over and over again. But I'd say like the NBA franchises are also totally that, but nobody complains about those. Many franchises do similar things, but I'd say EA does that like a lot. That's a big sticking point for a lot of people. Hey, Bad Gerbo, good to see you. How you doing, friend? So that's those ones. All right, here's some other word roots that I couldn't really put together effectively, I guess. I don't know why these bullets are different colors, but whatever. But yeah, these are ones that kind of didn't really go with a sort of picture or anything like that, or I couldn't kind of group together in similarity in any way, so here they are, just no visual to go along with them. But homeo, we talked about homeostasis the other day, but homeo means same kind or similar, okay? So homeostasis would be maintaining or maintenance of the same kind of state. So homeostasis is our body's always trying to kind of maintain homeostasis. Okay. Good, Gerbo. Yeah. Yeah, I get you, Ninja. I think a lot of people, probably, I mean, like many arguments, a lot of rage comes from ignorance, you know? Wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of that along with EA also. All right, we got endo and exo. These are opposites. There's a word I'm looking for. Thank you for waiting. I appreciate that. I have some word finding issues sometimes. So endo and exo are opposites. Endo meaning inner or within. So have endocannabinoids, which would be cannabinoids, you know, things similar to cannabis, or the things that are within cannabis. Or rather, it's probably more that cannabis is named after cannabinoids, but whatever. These are things that are produced within our body. Endocannabinoids are things we produce within us. Endocrine refers to crine being secretion or to secrete. So the endocrine system is part of our body, or parts of our body where things are secreted within a specific closed system, or within a specific system. Opposite of that being exocrine, where it's excreted to outside of that system. Okay. And then same thing. Exo means outer or away from, right? It's the opposite of endo. So again, exocrine is exogenous, where things are made outside of us. Okay. Endogenous would be things that are made inside of us. Exogenous are things that are made outside of us, like essential nutrients and stuff like that. That's very interesting, Dream Sanity. So trans would be across or to cross things. So transcranial magnetic stimulation is magnetic stimulation that crosses the cranium. It's a way to stimulate or temporarily knock out parts of a brain. Which crosses the cranium without having to cut up in a brain and actually damage that part of the brain. They'll do this to study different brain function in humans and stuff like that sometimes. They might use that as part of a screening in epilepsy to knock out that part of the brain and see how you function after that. Use it for a lot of different stuff. Exocrine, like mucus? Don't know. Couldn't say. I think it refers more to, I mean, it could. You are referring to secretions and stuff like that. Could be. Not sure. So troph refers to development or nourishment. Okay. Atrophy or atrophy would refer to no or a lack of development. So atrophy is, when your muscles or your parts of your brain or whatnot start to kind of atrophy or waste away. There's no development or lack of development, lack of nourishment, things like that. An autotroph, okay? An autotroph is, what plants are. They are autotrophs. They make their own nourishment. Okay? They're producers. They use the sunlight and stuff like that and the chemical processes within them to make their own sugars to sustain themselves. They don't need to take in or go hunt down other life forms to live, right? They take in sun and water for the most part, and they make their own food. Boom. Gerber said exocrine glands are glands that produce and secrete substances onto an epithelial surface. Okay, well, there you go. Mucus is one. That's the one. Thank you, Gerbo. Examples of exocrine glands, that's right, include sweat, Salivary glands, yes. Mammary glands. Ceruminous glands, which would be earwax. Lacrimal, which is your tears. Sebaceous, which is also sweat. Another type of sweat. There's apocrine sweat and sebaceous sweat. Both sweat. And mucus. Well, there we go. Thank you, Gerbo. I appreciate that. That's the one. That's the one. That's right. So endocrine glands are things that are being secreted within us. So like the endocrine system, like the HPA axis and stuff like that. It's part of the endocrine system. Exocrine stuff is stuff that's excreted outside of our body. That's it. Thank you. I appreciate that, Gerbo. 1 second. Ooh, I had that sneeze. Ooh. All right, and then we got some challenge words, y'all. Let's see if I can figure these out, and also let's see which ones I totally said while we were going through this. Oh yeah, I said this one. I think I said this one too. But anyways, here's them challenge words. You can't read this one because that's in the way. Neurotrophic. What does that mean? I got you, Ninja. No worries. Based on what we talked about, what is neurotrophic going to mean? Like a brain-derived neurotrophic factor. What does that mean? Through a duct? No, not quite. No. Think about that word trophy, right? Or that word trophy or trophy. Okay, and neuro, nourishing the brain. Exactly, Draco. There you go. Dream Sandy got it too. Nourishing neurons, or nourishing the nerves, nourishing the nervous system. Exactly. Like brain-derived neurotrophic factor kind of feeds those synaptic connections and makes them grow, makes them stronger, right? Causes or the increase in long-term potentiation. Oh, it's okay, Gerbo. It's all good. No worries. It's fine. Just learning. We good. Telophase. What does telophase mean? Those of you familiar with biology might get that one right away. Telophase is going, or telophase or telophase is going to be the end phase. Exactly, Dream Sanity. Telo meaning end, and then phase meaning phase. End phase. Telophase is often used when we're talking about meiosis or mitosis, right? It's the last phase of that where these cells split apart, and it literally means end phase, last phase. That's it. How about oligodendroglioma? What's that? Oligodendroglioma. Cancer of the oligodendrocytes. Draco got it. Oh, I'm also supposed to be doing this. Whoops. 1 second. Who got that first one? 4, 6. Answering questions here, so you guys get them things. Get them BDNFs. Dream Sanity got 1. Draco got 2. Dream Sandy got 1 too. Cancer 2.0 now with oil. Oh geez, that's no good. Dream Sandy got 1 too. There's that. Okay. Dystrophy. We talked about this earlier, I think. If you can remember what I said, that's fine. What would dystrophy mean? Using those two words, dys and trophy. What does that mean? We talked about this before, like muscular dystrophy. What's that? Decaying? No, not quite. Nope, that's atrophy. Atrophy. Yeah, not decaying. Dysfunctional nourishment, not, but it's the other. It's actually the other meaning for trophy, though. It's atypical development, right? So it's not so much nourishment here, but development. So like muscular dystrophy means your muscles don't develop the right way, and you can have a variety of physical symptoms because of that, right? And you also have some sort of brain or neurodystrophy as well. I forget what it is, but where your brain just doesn't develop correctly. So it can be that as well. So not quite, but close. I mean, you were using the right terms or the right root words, but at the right meaning in the right context here. Taking more notes and memorizing, it's fine. No, it's fine, Gerbo. This is just for funsies, so no worries. Anopsia, we totally talked. I think I said this one, if you can remember that one. But anopsia was another word for another way to say what? A quest time for whoever's ready. And Migmax, good to see you, man. Welcome on in. How are you? Hope you're doing well. This little burrito over here is waiting for a treat. So anopsia was, remember those word roots, anopsia. Why are you guys thinking about that? I do see y'all took out Tonky Trips, which means little fat boy gets treat. Y'all get some kitty cam. Means he gets treat. Y'all get some kitty cam. Thank you guys for donating again to Fat Boy's Fat Belly Fund, dedicated to keeping him the fattest little lab assistant on Twitch. He appreciates it. I appreciate it. You all love it. It's a win-win-win. Helping keep him the fattest little burrito on Twitch too. No, not Whopperito. That isn't a word. That's not a word. Yeah, it's insomnia for sure. There you go, Draco. That's kind of it. Yeah. Anopsia is just no sight, lack of sight. It's a way to talk about, visual defects, blindness, partial blindness, things like that. Anopsia is just blindness. That's it. Anopsia or anopsia. That's the one. Welcome and save us. Good to see you, man. How are you? Good to see you, dude. So neuropathy. I think we talked about this one too. Neuropathy. What is that? Tax due. We'll see you next time. Peace out, dude. Neuropathy. What does that mean? We got neuro and pathy. Brain damage? Not quite. Well, more specifically though, because it isn't just brain damage. It's also control of the brain. No. Yes, you got the brain part. The pathy part though. What does that mean though? There you go. Sebas got it. Nero's brain pathy is illness. So it could be damage, Dream Sandy, but it could also be due to illness or disease. It's not just damage. Exactly. Sebas gets one. Good job, Sebas. 1509. There we go. Just general brain bad, or like just brain illness or brain disease, right? It could be brought about due to physical, physical insults, but it could also be due to illness as well. Like Alzheimer's is a neuropathic disorder as well, So Draco, telepathy would be like feeling from a distance. That's telepathy, right? Pathy also it refers to feelings, right? Or like state of mind, right? So like empathy, same word root, but a different meaning. So like they had their fair share of homonyms, just like we do, Is epilepsy a neuropathy? I would say so. Yeah, it's a brain disease. Central nervous system disease, Endogenous. What's that mean? What's that mean? We actually, I think I talked about this specific term too. Inside the genes? No. Inside something. Skinny joint? Nope. That's not it either. Not inside the genes. No. Inside that inner part. Can you Google? You can Google these. I don't care. Girl, it's all for learning. Go ahead. Not inside the genes either. Nope, not those genes either. Nope. Also, there's the next neuroscience question in chat too. In what structure does each optic nerve decussate? Got two questions then. Where does each optic nerve decussate? And also, what does endogenous mean? Close enough, Dream Sandy. You got it, man. There you go, Sebas. Yes, endogenous means having an internal cause or being created internally, right? So endogenous things are things we create inside of us, right? Exactly. So think of it. You may have Googled it. That's fine. That's fine. Like what? Different neurotransmitters are endogenous. Like dopamine is endogenous. We create that inside of us. There's certain endorphins and cannabinoids that are endogenous. We create them within ourselves. Kinds of different stuff. Yeah. I'm sure there's certain things that are part of Krebs cycle that are endogenous as well. Peritoneal fluid, there's another one. There you go. Exactly. Endogenous. Yep. Hyperkinesia. Thinking about that word root hyper, and one you probably already know, kinesis. What's hyperkinesia? Not lots of senses, no. No senses. Think about that word kinesis, like in telekinesis. You know that word. You know that word. You've heard that. Muscle spasm, not so much. Not much senses either. Too much giggity gig. I mean, I don't even know what you mean by that. But hyper, yeah, too much what? Something. Not necessarily just a muscle spasm, Sebas. There's more to it than that. I say a lot of muscle spasms can be called that. Too much body? Fancy word for ADHD? No. Hyperkinesia is not a fancy word for ADHD. No. Too much movement. Gerbo's got it. Gerbo got it just before Draco. Yes. Too much movement. Hyperkinesia is not at all just a fancy word for ADHD. No. It can also go along with certain types of dysarthrias or muscular and nerve damage, where like there's just a lot more movement than normal. Certain people with like Parkinson's and stuff like that, like they'll have like way too much movement in their arm or whatever when they go to like move or sit still or whatever. Cerebellar damage can cause some hyperkinesia as well. So yeah, not so much major epilepsy, Potato. It's more, yeah, like you're moving to more than you should be, not like you're having a uncontrolled spasm like an epilepsy, you know. Like you're sitting and you're moving around, or like you can't keep your limbs and stuff still and stuff like that because you have like middle brain damage or some damage to your nerves and stuff like that. Big spasm seizures are called grand mal seizures. Restless leg syndrome, that could be, maybe that's a type of hyperkinesia. I don't know. It could be. That's one I don't know. Was Gerbo got that one? Good job, Gerbo. And the last one. Synaptogenesis. Let's go look that one up afterwards, actually. Let's go see if restless leg syndrome is a type of hyperkinesia. Wouldn't surprise me. But synaptogenesis, what is that? Synapto is synapses, exactly. Evolution is synapses, not evolution, but genesis is creation. There we go. Put that together. And you got put it together. So, creation of synapses. There you go. There we go, Sebas. Or Sebas. I was looking for like an actual sentence there. Yes, exactly. Creation of synaptogenesis is the creation of synapses. There we go. Driven a lot by BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's it. Kind of the carrot and that whole carrot and stick situation. That's the one. It's happened during long-term potentiation. Gerbo, you got it. You got it, girl. Sure does. That's them. You like long-term potentiation? You can remember it? Yeah. Oops, so I did both of them. There we go. Yes, so that does totally happen during a long-term potentiation. Yes. It's creation of new synapses and also strengthening of existing synapses. For sure. Dream Sanity said, yes, restless leg syndrome is actually a good example of hyperkinesia. Just looked it up. Cool. Thank you. Yes. Awesome. Thank you for that. It's partially a joke. Well, I like it, Gerbo. I got it, and I like it. I like both parts of that. But